Okay, good evening once again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Kaiso Talk. It's a pleasure as always, and of course, joining me this evening, the team is back. Val is here, Teacher Eddie's here, and of course, Dexter is with us as well. We should be joined by Papa Jerry not too long from now. Last week we ended on some serious discussion, and so we felt it important. We couldn't leave those discussions hanging, so we had to return this week to address them. And I wasted no time. Let me just welcome the guys quickly. Dexter, Eddie, Val, welcome. It's a pleasure.
And thank you to the listening and viewing public, World Wide Web.
Yes. Once again, welcome Grenada, welcome all the species of the Windward who are hearing this program, Kairaku, PT Martinique, others. Welcome again to another interesting Kaiso Talk.
Good evening all, listeners, viewers, co-hosts. It's 3 weeks now, so it's very exciting to have this continued conversation about Calypso and culture and carnival. And the fact that people are interested in the discussion. Just one quick comment. I think the last 2 weeks on GBN, there were conversations about carnival. The last to be on the headlines here. And I know Val kept making that point about the complaints and bringing up the problems, and that is what we saw. And I think what we are doing here now is actually trying to find the solutions. How do we move from just identifying the problems, which we've been doing for the last 25 years, to actually coming up with some solutions, some things that make sense, that can be implemented in short term, long term, and medium term.
Yes, you already did correct, Dexter. So we wasted no time. Last week when we ended, we basically on the issue of the two Calypso associations, which I think we all know and we all agree has created some problems on the road, especially when it comes to benefits for Calypsonians and their work and all of that, and it's a serious concern. But I want to start with you, Dexter. Prior to this, what was actually happening? Because I can't recall some of these kind of issues before, but 2001 came and then this problem arose. Dexter, what created the problem? How did we get to that?
What I think happened is that the Calypsonians generally boycotted Carnival in 2001. So there's a general call for a boycott. I don't know if Teacher Eddie remembered, there was a meeting in Heinz's school. It might have been a Saturday morning, and there was a general agreement that there was going to be a boycott across the board. Some Calypsonians thereafter agreed to sing. I know the soca artists, a group of them went to the minister at the time, and they agreed that if the prize money was going to be doubled, it was 15,000 at the time for the first prize. If it was going to be doubled to 30,000, that they would sing, they would take part in what was not a Soca Monarch Party Monarch, because the Soca Monarch was then owned by GPAC, or the Calypso Association. So I think that group of artists who eventually decided to sing actually went ahead and formed their own association, and those who took part in the boycott, they maintained another association. So that gave birth to two Calypso associations.
But prior to that, so something must have caused. Why did the Calypsonian make that call for the boycott that time?
Because of the contract. I think we discussed that 2 weeks ago. The contract that was awarded to a private company to provide light, song, and stage for Carnival, which was at the beginning a noble endeavor, that we were doing events privately, and I was part of that organization. And the thought was that the quality of events we were doing superseded the quality of the Carnival events. So we can offer our professional services to Carnival, say the same light, stage, and song that we are using for our events. They are available to Carnival, obviously at a cost. We will be the intermediary to bring those things in from Trinidad. As always, those things, how those things go, it was not handled well. And, people started to think, hey, we don't need to speak to Calypsonians or panmen or massmen. We are going to do this and it's going to happen. And obviously the stakeholders, felt aware about it, and rightfully so. I mean, they were stopped that, hey, let's look at the numbers, panorama ain't making sense. There's not going to be panorama. And that was not my thought of it. My thought was whatever already was in place, we were going to enhance it, make it better. In fact, even in those days, there was not much marketing of Carnival and marketing and awareness. So we just kind of took it for granted that people would come. People would come to the March Grab, people would come to Panorama and so on. So there was no effort to sell it local. I'm not even talking outside of Grenada, just locally. There were no ads, there were no posters, for the shows. They were just taken for granted that people would come. And which probably worked well in the 80s and 90s, but then we started to get into alternatives, into a competitive space. So the idea was to offer those professional services to Carnival, but the contracts and what it entailed kind of became bigger than the Carnival itself. So the people who were behind the contract decided, hey, we are going to call the shots in what should and should not happen for Carnival. And of course, rightfully so, the stakeholders said no. And to prove that the stakeholders were right, I think that arrangement only lasted in 2001 and maybe partially in 2002, and then it ended.
So, Eddie, come in here, and let's hear your view on this. Was this what actually happened? Because there seemed to be sometimes you don't get a standard story on that. I mean, as a Calypsonian, and you were around that time, what actually happened from the Calypsonian perspective?
So I remember the conflict over what Dexter said there. But to me, the bad blood came because I was at that meeting that Saturday morning. And there was a mediation plan for, I think, the Tuesday in the next week. So we meet this Saturday. There was a mediation plan for. So in my humble opinion as a young artist then, I was like, well, we can't boycott nothing now. If we have a mediation, let's wait till the mediation. But Godfrey, the sad thing about it, and I think what really poked the bear there, is that the guys or the folks who are very vocal about boycott were the same ones that go back and say, give us if you double the money, we come in and sing. So, I mean, that left a bad taste in the mouth of even people like me, because I trying to be level-headed and saying, well, we have a meeting plan for Tuesday, we can't talk about boycott Saturday and we want to meet Tuesday. But I say, okay, if the meeting then come out start Tuesday or things in favor, then we could talk about boycott. But those guys who were saying, we boycotting, they were the ones that go to the minister and say, it gave us $30,000 and we getting all the artists with us, and the minister buying into that stupidness. And that was the breakup. I mean, you tell me, I in a meeting, and then that time I consider myself a young artist, and trying to be level-headed, and you have people vocal and getting on, we boycotting, and then later in the week I see these people jump on the bandwagon and say, we having the show because we could get the artists together, give us the increase in prize money. I mean, to me that was crazy. And I still felt bad about the idea of forming a new association, because I really wanted us to kind of keep the Greater Progressive Kaiso Association. But somehow they said, nah, let's disband that, let's leave that on the side and form a new organization. All right? And that's where GPAC came, and then the other side decided, well, they don't want to be part of GPAC, so they're going to form their own thing, the GCCA. So that's how we end up with the two of them, and that bad blood just keep flowing up. As I said, 24 years after, we still had a bad blood in it. I remember doing a Kaiso called Kaiso Cry, and I actually cried because one line, something in the song I say, when I see the two associations can come together, that make me cry, So that wasn't just Kaiso that was crying, that was me that was crying to it. Because I thought, it was not a nice taste, I thought.
So, what the prize money raised that year?
Yeah. People get the Monarch get more than prize money too. I think they get a car. Dexter, a car was given.
Yes, the Monarchs, the Calypso Monarch, I think, and the Queen got cars that year.
Yeah.
And apart from the doubling of the prize monies happened under Soca Monarch. And because the Soca monarch belonged to the Calypso Association at the time, the Carnival Committee had to use Party Monarch.
Remember, said we couldn't use the name because
because it belonged to. But in addition to that, Calypsonians were, so apart from the Soca artists, Calypsonians were given guarantees also. So Calypsonians who in that same meeting pledged boycott were then contacted individually, and they were given some guarantees, and they pledged, okay, if that is the case, then we are going to sing. And I think that is what made it so bad.
Yeah,
I think if the contract was offered and there was talk about boycott without that meeting on Saturday morning, I don't think there would have been so much bad blood. The fact that people came the Saturday morning, and it was a very public meeting. I mean, I was there. I remember the late Jericho was there. So people were seeing people and hearing people. You know, it was not a behind the scenes meeting, and people were very adamant. And less than a week after, people flipped, and I think that is what created the bad blood.
There used to be a talk that was out as it relates to that, and why some of the Calypsonians who first spoke about boycott decided to flip. They felt that if some Calypsonians were out of the competition, they had the opportunity to win the crown.
Yeah, that was true. That was true also.
Even the Soca monarch too, and I mean that has been the standard moving across. I mean, subsequently there have been meetings, especially among the Soca artists, about boycotts, about not taking part in competition unless the conditions were improved. But you could never get 100% agreement on that. What you got was some people saying, "Hey, well, if Godfrey not in competition, this is my turn. He could still, if he want to, I go in and sing."
Right.
So, and there were people who had no respect for history in that 2001. I mean, there's no asterisk on against the name of the winners. But for them, it was important that I tick this off my box. I won a national crown. I mean, whatever the conditions, people will say what they won, but history will show that I won a crown in 2000.
But I also heard that some of the people who were almost certain that they were going to win the crown, if they sang, they still lose.
Yeah.
So, you only have one winner, maybe a tie. So I don't know how many people were promised. I mean, I know, I wouldn't say it publicly. I knew of one individual who was promised, and anyway, let's just leave it.
Let me validate the comment here, because you listen to Eddie and Dexter.
So always I like to put things into context, and immediately. So let's deal with. So there are a number of things, but I have to raise it. I want to be certain. Your independence is in the 70s, right? 74.
74.
74, yeah. Right? So that by 2001, that's 27 years. 27 years after your independence, you're fighting. You're young. You're still trying to put things together, right? And this clash comes and happens, and it's 24 years before you put it back together again. So Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, break. Nobody could put him back together again. You're still kind of separate, but it's 24 years. It's early, right? Or 20 to the 74.
Yeah, 74.
Yeah. 74, right, 27 years, right? But if the fundamental question is, and still is, and now that you have 24 years that you're still kind of bickering and not putting it back together, the fundamental question still is, who are the owners of these cultural heritage forms? I want to ask it is not well, it is a question to both Dexter and Eddie, and Godfrey too, but it's not a trick question, right? So let's try and understand that. Who are the owners of these cultural heritage forms?
Dexter?
Not a trick question.
To me, it is the practitioners. And I think that is a very pointed and very poignant question, because it leads to the discussion of who should benefit. And we had the discussions over the last couple of weeks that Spice Mass wants to benefit more from Carnival than the Carnival practitioners. And I think...
Yeah, don't just answer the question quickly.
Yeah.
Eddie.
Well, I would say the same thing.
You say the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. So Godfrey, I guess you were saying. So yeah. So that and not just the practitioners, people. You know, the people are the thing. Any cultural form that we have in the Caribbean are owned by the people. Is the ground, as one would like to say, or I say the yard, who have kept these forms alive, who have created them. You know. And I think if you understand the fact that you are the creators and the custodians of these forms, then you start to see it differently. So that you don't just sell yourself and start to bargain for crumbs. Now, I'm not saying you go and color people and say, you know, you want astronomical fees and so on. But I think when you start to understand that you own these forms, and these forms are your assets left to you by your forebears, you know? So in the Caribbean, coming out of a plantation economy and so on, being Afro-based, you didn't get any land, you know, but you certainly got these forms. And now in 2025, 24 years of bickering and so on, you have to understand this inheritance of yours and how to negotiate with it going forward. I think that is the discussion I would like to put on the table. That I think across the Caribbean, we need to understand that. That these... Yeah.
Sorry. The challenge, Val, is that the custodians, so not the owners, so we establish who the owners are, but the custodians have no respect and no regard for the owners.
But so the owners are still the custodians. You can't give up. I hear you, but you can't give up your custodial rights to somebody else.
This is what has happened. So for example, in Grenada, Spice Mass believes that it belongs to them and not to the practitioners. So let me use an example. Let me use cricket as an example. So in the heyday of West Indies cricket, the 70s, the 80s, it belonged to the West Indies Cricket Board of Control. It was actually called the Board of Control. And the cricketers did not benefit because it belonged to the board, not the owners who were the players. Now, what we're facing now is that there are alternatives for the players, and they are saying, "Hey, I am going to use my talents to make as much money as possible. You cannot confine me to play for the West Indies if I do not want to." Unfortunately, Calypsonians and Carnival practitioners do not have that option. They have to wait on Carnival, and I think the so-called owners kind of hold that over the head that you need to come to us. Yes, you can make some money, but you can only do so during the Carnival season. And then outside of that, the extended entities, the ministries of culture and the cultural foundations do not create an enabling environment for the practitioners to survive. So for example, one of the things we've tried to do when I was at the Cultural Foundation was to establish with the Ministry of Trade that people in the cultural space, in the creative space, have to be given professional designations. So, for example, when I do business with Jamaicans, the person who plays, who is a DJ in Jamaica, his passport actually says some system operator. He can actually go to the bank or the credit union and do business with that. Teacher Eddie cannot go to the bank and say, I'm a Calypsonian. I kept making that point over and over and over, and I was questioned, why you so, about the bank and whatever, but that is what he does for a livelihood. Right now, as a studio owner, he cannot go to the bank. There is no designation that recognizes studio owner or Calypsonian that says, yes, we recognize you, that is your trade, and we can do business with you. So outside of the Carnival season, we still have those issues with the ministries, with the cultural foundations that have to recognize what we have, who we have, who the creatives are. And let me stop that. Somebody else.
You see, because
not to probably make this into some kind of academic debate or whatever, but it is important. I think it really is important across the Caribbean, not just in Grenada, in Trinidad, in St. Vincent, wherever, even in Jamaica. They have a different kind of history, right? That we understand, especially at a creative level, what we are talking about. People are talking about blending culture and tourism and merging them and creating opportunities. But in some territories, they just see that blend is to bring more tourist ships in and have the natives perform for them, and pay them some kind of stipend. But I'm saying that these heritage forms which were passed on to you are yours. These are your assets, and you have to begin to start to see it like that. And understand, just as if your grandfather left a piece of land for you, right? Then you have a piece of asset that you can do something with, that is worth something, right? So that the once we start to see it like that, then these bickerings can stop. So I'm saying all of that to say that there's a way to fix the bickering, and let's fix it in 2025.
So
and the conversation has to be academic. We cannot get away from. I think by not making it academic, we are simplifying
the issue. Yeah, too much. Yeah. But Dexter, I want to Eddie, just before I come to you. You mentioned earlier that following the boycott and what had happened, and of course it's no secret that there were quite a bit of politics involved. But you said it did not last very long because the following year things fell apart. Why then didn't the Calypsonians reunite?
Yeah, but the issue is that, if I should take it, the issue is that the bad blood still existed. But between you and you, after 24 years, when I look back on that thing, now, the majority of artists, you might hear the boat association claiming artists, but the majority of artists belong to no association here. No, because the associations don't function the way associations used to function when I was a young artist growing up. Right? We used to have meeting, whether it's quarterly, whatever, and you have elections and all of that. But that doesn't happen now. So somebody comes and say, oh, you're an artist? Well, okay, you want to register with my association? And they register you. But so the functioning of the association is not. But the sad, I don't know if it's the sad thing. One of the things about it is that, as I said, both associations are registered under the Trade Union Act of Grenada. So you can't sideline anybody and say, I ain't doing business with you, because they're a registered body, not no ad hoc body there. So they exist. And I guess that is why when the effort at unifying the two associations failed, they realized they had to deal with both of them. So you can't really sideline and say, okay, let me deal with GPAC because GPAC seems to be more organized, or let me deal with GCCA because they seem to be more organized, right? You just have the two associations named, they're registered organizations, and they have members, so you can't really think. But to me, the majority of artists don't belong to no association.
But the thing is, here's what I don't understand. So if that is the case, right? And you're going back from the start of this and looking at it, and of course, as I said earlier, definitely there is a lot of politics involved. But even if some people or some Calypsonians decide to put their political allegiance,
differences,
or if they decide to put their allegiance to a particular political party, right? Even so, they are still in the same place. They're not benefiting. So what is the point of it? Because if you feel, for example, I mean, I have seen, and we've heard the talk. It's no secret. We talk in the Kaiso Talk. The association, there's the general feeling that GPAC is on one side and GCCA is on the other side. But even so, when GCCA's allegiance is in office, they still don't benefit. We have a different government in office now, which it is believed is aligned to a particular association. Are the Calypsonians or that association benefiting? Eddie, as a Calypsonian? No,
well, because I was just going to say that we might say that maybe when the shoes was on the other foot, that these people didn't used to benefit. But to me, in the back, I'm hearing now that a lot of money used to run to assist artists, but I never get any assistance. But they used to assist, but they because they brand me as a GPAC person, I never was offered okay, you're going to record, I'm going to pay after you could get a song record. I mean, one time I know I was able to get recording done, I think, under Spaceman, and you die a lot of years. You know, they tell me I could go in the studio and do a song. But I understand now that this thing about studio and paying and picking artists to assist continued up until maybe 2022. You know?
Okay.
But I was never benefited, so it was just the associated. Well, I should say just, but most of the artists who benefited would have either been associated with the other side.
Where the allegiance lie?
Yeah, and stuff like that, because the branding was still there. As you said, the whole mashing up of the association was a political interference. And the sad thing about it is that the minister then was from the bowels of Calypso, eh?
Yeah. You
know?
Yeah.
So that was sad. But I mean, so you still, I would say maybe they didn't benefit. There were benefits shared out, but it was going to one side, one set of people. I never get benefited.
And is it because they probably felt that when the time comes, or for Calypsonians probably to make something significant, which is the March Granite, clearly that side was not benefiting there.
Well, I mean, it's sad to hear sometimes people talking about, and Dexter might have heard that already. Okay, you have a national competition. You have two associations. No, the competition is open for everybody, but people feel that this side should get a certain amount and this side should get a certain amount. And to me, that is nonsense.
Well,
the best of the best. If the best come from one side, then that is the best. I don't see why you want to break it down to say, okay, this association must get a certain amount and this association must get a certain amount. That to me is nonsense.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sure Dexter, you heard that talk already too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Godfrey is touching on something very important. I think coming out of 2001, I don't know if it was intentional. I don't think then it was intentional by the government or the powers that be to create a divide. I think the interest then was just to have carnival, so they were willing to pay. And promise, like I said, promises were made, promises were kept, so we benefited. However, coming out of that, I guess people felt, hey, I was loyal in 2001 to the agenda. I need to benefit now. And to be quite honest, I think that for 24 years, they've been strung along. And it is not that GPAC's artists are better than GCCA's artists. I think because of the continued promise, GCCA feels that they do not have to work as hard. But when you face the judges, it's not the politicians doing the judging, it is the Calypso judges doing the judging. Eventually, when you face the judges, then the judges will determine. And I'll give you an example. Remember 2007, Scholar won the Monarch in 2005. He won again in 2006. In fact, I was fired in 2006 because it was said that as long as I manage in Carnival, Scholar will keep winning because me and Scholar are friends. We were not friends then. Scholar had not developed a friendship as yet, but that was said. So I was fired, and foreign judges were brought in.
2007, yeah.
Trinidadian judges, sorry.
Remember when...
CARICOM National, sorry.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Were brought in to judge the competition in 2007.
And Scholar still with...
Scholar was defending.
Yeah. So
by the time they sift through and selected and put up a group of artists against Scholar, again he won. You know, so it is. So I think they have been told over and over, you don't have to work hard. You on our side, we'll take care of you. If you sing Mary Had a Little Lamb, don't worry. Don't hit us too hard. Don't say the government teaching, no. Don't sing about that. Sing the children looking nice, and we'll go take care of you. But then when you face the judges, and it is hard for the judges not to judge accurately. I mean, when you're in front of the crowd, I mean, you have to do what you have to do as a judge. So I think that is the difference. Now, if there is one association, everybody, all the cream would rise to the top because everybody would want the best. Nobody's feeling that I am being placated to, I've been promised, so I don't need to come with my A game. Everybody will come with the A game because before the split, there was just Calypso. Jamo won in 2004, Scholar won in 2005, 2006, 2007. So it was always a level playing field. So I think it is time. I think we've gotten to the point where, as Val said, we have to understand who the owners are, and now it is a different dynamic in the fact that all Calypsonians are thrown in the same pot. In that, I don't think there is with the advent of the Spice Mass Corporation, I don't think it is about sites. It's just about, hey, we are going to do this for our benefit. We have our show our white show on Carnival Saturday night. We highlighting the Monday Night Mass. We kind of accommodating y'all. So for example, and it was a good move to move the finals of the Calypso competition to Progress Park. A Thursday night. It worked well on Thursday night. I would still prefer it to be on Sunday night, but Grenville worked well. Now it has been moved back to St. George's, but the Calypsonians have no say. And Teacher Eddie, who's been on the stage, could tell you there's a much bigger crowd in Grenville than there would ever be in St. George's again in front of a big empty stadium. But the Calypsonians don't have a say. And I think those are the things Val is touching on, that we need to get back to the point. We don't have to threaten boycott or anything like that, but have a say in the decision making. I mean, even the formation of the Judges Association, it involved Calypsonians. The Calypsonians, for the first time, had a say in who was going to judge them. Teacher Eddie, you know that. You would walk up on the stage and not know who the judges were. You have no idea who's judging you. But we had a cluster of qualified judges that the Calypsonians felt comfortable with, again, giving them ownership of the craft.
But Dexter, when you said, let me jump in here. When you said that there were a cluster of judges who the Calypsonians were comfortable with, Calypsonians there, I think we need to put that into perspective. Are we talking here about a specific group of Calypsonians or the general Calypso fraternity? Because I have a feeling it's not okay, go ahead.
No, the General Calypso fraternity, the Judges Association was formed in 2006. So you already had the split. You had two associations. So both associations were invited. I think Bobla was head of GCC at the time, the late Lincoln John. And I think Neil Ferguson represented GPAC. So you had a representation from both sides. And then they were going and meeting with their membership and then coming back to us, and we were having the meetings. So it was like I said, it was very cordial. The Calypsonians know across the board. There are 25 or 30 people who've been attending the workshop. And it was not one workshop pre-Carnival. It was a series of workshops. We used to have our first workshop in September, immediately after Carnival, to discuss everything related to the season that just ended. And that included Calypsonians themselves, judges, prospective judges, and so on. So it was a continuous process. So the Calypsonians and Teacher Eddie could be were comfortable knowing that, hey, Val is judging, Godfrey is judging. I'm not sure which on which night, but coming out of the pool of judges who attended the workshops, who were part of the discussion, I'm comfortable with them.
All right. Val, anything before we move on?
Yeah, so I think we reach a point where in understanding that, so that you are owners of the thing, and what do you do with it? Do you just keep it in that competitive mode so that each year you do the Calypso Monarch, you do the Soca Monarch, maybe the Panas in Trinidad, and then you roll back in you roll back into your Panyard and you wait for the competition again? I think that if we understand that whether you have it in Grenville or whether you have the show in St. George's, you have a limited population, so that your 100,000 people, a certain percentage of that will come to the shows, right? But the audience for this thing is growing. There are regular people. I met someone, a librarian the other day, and or works in the library. She's telling me, I went to Grenada last year and I plan to probably go back, and she came and she played mass and things. So people are planning for the festivals. Tourists, even regional, are coming to the festival, right? What needs to happen is that, airfare is becoming too expensive, so that we need a ferry. You need a ferry, a kind of regional ferry that could get people to and from the islands without those exorbitant costs. And for the shows themselves, you cannot now just be dependent on seats and getting people through the turnstile. There is pay-per-view, there is ways of packaging the show, and that brings us right to the point in terms of the length of calypsos and so on that we were talking about. If you are thinking that, let's say you have, and that is going down the road, it doesn't have to be immediate, but if you understand that the larger audience, the diasporic audience and so on, is much larger than the home audience for viewing, and there is more to be made by the expansion of these forms being shown outside, and artists collecting royalties and pay-per-view and all those kinds of things, that we can now move to that direction. So when we talk about, having a stake in the conversation, also talking about expanding the reach and the earning capacity of the festival, and not just a home-based thing where the government promise you whether it's $75,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, but the fact that the earning capacity can be quadrupled, in a short space of time. Yeah. That's my thing.
Right. I want to go back a bit, Dexter, and I am targeting you a lot because I know you do have some information regarding this thing. So, just backtracking a bit, in 1991, right? NDC had just won the election from 1990. Yes. Carnival at that time was given to the service clubs to run. All right, yes. the Rotary and so on and so forth. And later on, things were going well. There was a name change, I think, after that to the, was NCCDC? I think it was.
National Carnival Committee, I think.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. How was Carnival in those years threatened? So much so that the politicians following felt that they needed to make changes. Because, as far as I can remember, Carnival in those years was bigger and better. Maybe not as much people, but Carnival was exciting. People loved Carnival. More people played mass. Just moving aside from the Calypso a little bit. But even so, the Calypso was a big thing. The Mardi Gras was the biggest thing. So it's kind of mind-boggling how we moved from that, and then when did they start paying the subvention? It was 1997, I think, thereabout.
No, 2001.
That's when subvention started.
Yeah, the same boycott. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Godfrey, if you go back to Grenada's Calypso history. NDC brought in the service clubs, and then if you look at the construct, who were the people involved and subscribe to that philosophy, it was basically NDC saying we want our people in control of Carnival.
Okay.
So the Lions Club, the Rotaractors, and so on. Then it moved back to, I think it became NCC. It was NCCDC. Mm-hmm. Developmental Corporation or whatever, and then he went from that to NCCC. However, if you remember, or Teacher Eddie and Godfrey, you guys would remember, with the advent of the Soca Monarch, the construct of Calypso changed. So you didn't have Inspector coming and singing a second song, taking them up to space, or Peter Humphreys talking about Miss Daisy, singing about Miss Daisy. Those songs were now entering into the Soca Monarch competition, which cleared the way for two strong lyrical songs. Now, and that happened around 1994 is when we had our first Soca Monarch. And Scholar and Beast and those guys came on the scene just around that time. Mr. X, and they were great political and social commentary writers. So they were giving you two strong political commentaries. And it is my view that the powers that be felt, hey, we need to control this thing from the outset. And I think that is where government interference started to come in. Because look at what happened in 1991. They said 1991, you reference Godfrey and Teacher Eddie. NDC won the election in 1990. In 1991, Moss International did Jambalasi. And if you go back to the documentary that we did, the guys actually said that came out of what was happening politically.
Well, of course. I mean,
was happening.
There was a lot happening.
We could all agree now in hindsight that when that song came out in 1991, and because it so encapsulated what was happening politically, there was no way NDC was going to win the election, whether they call it 1992, 93, 94, 95. That song essentially sealed the fate after 1 year. So the politicians were aware. Even Gary, think about what Calypso was in the 70s. You had to sing agriculture and I Love Grenada and those things. You couldn't sing against the government because the government understood the power of Calypso and what it can do. Imagine having a song being played over and over and over in the people's ears throughout the carnival season when you're having a good time. And that Jambalassi song played right up until Christmas. So I think when you had Bisan Scholar now coming and singing those powerful political commentaries, the politicians said, "Hey, we need some interference. We need to put our people in place." So if you look at the construct of the judging of the shows and so on, that for me, when I got involved in Carnival, that was a major sore spot. I mean, I couldn't look at Calypsonian in the eye, and he's saying to me, "Dexter, I don't know who judged me." I had the advent of the Judges Association was an interaction with Bobla, the late Lincoln John. He actually cried as a grown man. He came and he cried. He said, "Look, Dexter, a judge gave me 15 for lyrics." So he basically telling me I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm writing about. So that I think that is where the political interference started to set in. That they had to be control of the political commentary. 2001 presented a wonderful opportunity to say, "Hey, let us go to one side. Who will sing Mary Had a Little Lamb versus the other side who will say the government corrupt."
But Dexter, let me ask you this. And I just want to throw this out on the table. I'm not sure if I'm correct, but I believe that maybe somewhere along the line, maybe not in a huge way, but there may have been a little impact. Now we spoke about the days of the one slow song in the first round and the second round, the upbeat song.
Oh, yeah.
And in 1993, when Scholar came with his two very powerful songs, followed by Beast and Mr. X, and then Eddie followed, and some of the other guys, do you think that some of the other Calypsonians, who were probably well versed in their party songs and so, felt threatened by these very powerful, or what we may call, as people refer to them, heavy lyric songs? And so they felt they had to also move in that direction, because also bear in mind it was the GPCA who started the Soca Monarch, wasn't it so?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was the guy in Sugar Mill, I think.
Well, Brian Peter and Troy Gabriel.
They had done a thing, but the official thing was 94.
But the official national one was in 94. That one, Black was the one in 94. That was organized by the GPCA.
So I'm just wondering here, and yes, I do believe strongly that the politicians, they had some serious interference, and they continue to have serious political interference in the art. But I also think that somewhere along the line, there were some Calypsonians who felt that, you know what, I am not going to get left behind, going and do a bit song in the second round, and you have fellas who come in with them heavy social commentaries, and that was actually getting some of the judges' attention.
I can't say definitively that the Calypsonians changed the way they were writing. I mean, because if you look at Ajamo never changed his style. Ajamo was who Ajamo was. He against the field. He always sang that. All the come for me, I come and for you too. But it probably gave birth to a new crop of Calypsonians, guys who were not very versed at doing the party songs, who were more lyrical. So Papa Jerry, for example, who we spoke to last week, who said, you know what, I can write that kind of song. I came from that kind of background, the fire and Rastaman and so on. So I can go down that road. But there was that outlet for the guys who were doing the party songs who could go into the Soca Monarch. The Soca Monarch became, and it's kind of interesting because you actually used to have the March Guy and Soca Monarch together. So when Wizard sang IMF, he got the big role. When he sang Tell Stone in the first round, but Inspector coming and sing My Neighbor in the second round and mashing up the place.
Yeah.
And then you have Scholar now coming and singing the two hardcore lyrical songs. I mean, remember Beast singing I Want to Die for My Country, and those powerful songs that were getting the same kind of reaction that an Inspector song would get. And then you still had them going back into the Soca Monarch now, Inspector and those guys going back into the Soca Monarch and mashing it up. So, but I do believe that the politicians saw the threat. They saw that. I mean, and to me, 1991 was a test case for it. If those guys could sing a song in 1991 and be so powerful, because I think this is the first time we had a calypso go from August right up to Christmas. If I was a politician, I would feel threatened too.
But I think we also saw, because if my memory serves me right, a lot of times okay, so in the inception of the soca, you find the soca artist then was the very said calypsonian. So what you used to have now, when the guys used to sing the soca song, the song they were doing soca monarch, also in the Magica too, you know, we had some of that.
Yeah.
So you create the party feel in the Magica, you know.
But remember too the criteria. So you still had Miss and Scholar scoring more points in lyrics. So for example, Inspector by no measure is a lyrical master. So those guys would outscore him just by virtue of. So presentation is only, correspondence is only 10 points. Presentation I think only 15 points, but lyrics was 30 points. So when you have for example, Specky's turn at social commentaries will go in the wrong way, which lyrically is a light song compared to anything that Bison Scholar would do. So they would always have the advantage in the calypso arena. But when he go on stage and he sing Madness, you know, he just who can and music.
But one more thing on the whole issue of political interference. In 1995, and I think that was the same year Monday Night Mass started, there were two chairmen of the NCCDC.
Wow. Okay.
Politics. Yep. Politics. And political interference. To suit purposes. And you can and I think these are things that our calypsonians and by extension our stakeholders of Carnival, mass bands and pan players and everybody else, these are the things they need to pay attention to. And see how this whole thing is manipulated, not in the interest of Calypsonians, but as Dexter rightly said, to ensure that the politicians feel safe. Because they understand the power. I mean, Gypsy said it. You know, the Calypsonian has the power to put government in office, to take them out, to do all kind of things. And politicians understand that. And so they are taking advantage, and unfortunately, our Calypsonians continue to buy into that.
But even outside of the politics, Godfrey, what hurts me more is the fact that there is, and I think Val touched on it again about the ownership and the business component of it, so that the Calypsonians presently are the masses of the politicians waiting on the subvention for the band rehearsals, for the band practice, to take part in a judging night. And then if you are fortunate, you go to the semi-final and then to the final. Then outside of that, there is no calypso. Unless a private interest, or you've done it, Godfrey, I've done it, does a calypso show outside of the season, then there's nothing. There are no workshops, there's nothing developmental taking place for calypso. And to me, that is even more worrisome, because I think the artists, whoever they are, the creatives, can always fight through the political victimization. They will always find a creative way to do it. I mean, they would sing a song in front of a politician and have him dancing and laughing and not realize that they're singing he's been sung about. But the business component of it, outside of the carnival season, or even the lead up to, we're already in May. This is May, and there is no indication of a calypso season until the association gets the pittance from government for the rehearsals, and then you have the preliminaries, you have the semis, and then the season is over, and then we're back to square one, you know. And
but
let us be clear.
If I have to pop in here a little bit, because I have heard in recent as this week that tents are making effort to start rehearsal as early as next week. So because I did some music for a guy and he tell me, Northwest, for example, will say that you want to start practice next week. I know Kaiso Badge is talking about starting a practice. So more than likely, I think we may just get a season this year.
Okay.
And how? But let me ask. No. That just sparked something here, Val. How is that possible? Because annually, every year, the tents complain about monies, and basically when they get the little subvention, it's just for the band takes everything. And we're talking about a period. In some instances, tents have one show. The opening night is judging night. Sometimes 1 or 2 shows before that. So how is that possible? I mean, we are in May. Let's just push it and say, okay, so they start rehearsing in June, and the band has to get paid for rehearsal. How is that possible? Is government significantly increasing the subvention, or they've budgeted a lot more for Carnival so that all of these things can happen?
Well, if I should trap in here, I'm not sure as to whether I think they would have budgeted more, because I'm hearing on the ground, as somebody associated with Kaiso 10, I'm hearing that there may be an increase in the subvention. But apart from that, I'm hearing that there is going to be an early payment of the subvention. So maybe that's why tents are making that kind of preparation to start the rehearsal, because there is a promise of an early subvention. I mean, yeah, you might start early, but you might still finish late, because you may have to cut down if you're having too much rehearsal. Because remember, here you pay for rehearsals, right?
Well, that's the point I'm making. Even if you pay the subvention early, it would mean that the subvention must be significantly more to support that kind of thing, having to pay for every rehearsal. Dexter.
But the other challenge, Godfrey, even if the monies were already paid, let's say they were paid at the end of April, we do not have enough musicians to facilitate the number of calypsonians and tents. All the wind instruments, the saxophones, the trombones, and trumpets are lodged in the police band. So while you might have 3 or 4 bands supporting 5 or 6 tents, essentially is the same musicians. Mm-hmm. And then what you have is a drastic drop in the last few years of the quality of the calypsos and the performances, because guys are just kind of going through the motions, I guess, just to get paid. So that is something that we have to look at also. And we spoke about that last week. The enabling environment for the development of calypso. We cannot start in May. Whether the money is paid early or not, that does not fix the problem. Start in May, just have a season in June, July, end in August, and that's it. And then we're not producing musicians. We're not producing. Teacher ID and probably Mongzan are the only 2 calypso studios that remain in Grenada. I could imagine the amount of work Teacher ID will have probably a year later on this month and early next month to get all the music out and so on. Mm-hmm. And then we have to talk about the space for outside of GBN, the space of playing the calypsos. In fact, now most of the calypsonians do not record for airplay; they record something just so that the score could be recorded.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we have to talk about that complete enabling environment. Mm-hmm. We cannot have music without musicians. But if we don't have musicians,
but listen.
What will happen is that if the subvention, the more money is spent on the subvention, the earlier it is paid, it means the musicians are going to make more. Because they are going to charge more. That is what has been happening, and let us not fool ourselves.
No. Well, Dexter,
the government is more. The musicians are going to charge.
This
more.
is
if I should compliment that, Godfrey, I'm glad you raised the issue of the lack of musicians, because I see that even within our tent, the brassmen play for 3 tents. Mm-hmm. You have the trumpeter playing here and then he playing for 2 other tents. So you have problem. There is no way 2 tents could have. You can have a tent performing in St. Andrews and one in St. George at the same night, if they use the same handsmen. You have a problem.
Well, let me tell you, Eddie. I mean, that could be fixed easy. All they need to do is to just contract me and Val, and we can fix that for them easily, just like that. Snap our fingers, and we fix that. But But no, on a serious note, Val,
I think I want to go back to where we start. Well, it's always on the table, right? And so it's clear that in a political sense, you have competitions, and that is necessary because it's a means of control. Yeah, so that you regulate and control how the forms are seen and developed because of competitions, right? Yet the competition is the only way where the artists, the Calypsonian, soca artists, could make some money in order to live, right? How do you break out of that stranglehold? And as I pointed out earlier on, there are ways, if we see that the festival is developing, that there are people in the Caribbean who are planning to come to your festival, that the hotels are filled and the other, and you have a number of hotels all over Grenada, and people come to them, and you have a large diasporic audience outside look forward to the festival. How do you tap into those things to expand the revenue streams of the festival so that it can redound to the Calypsonian and not depend solely on the government giving you subventions and just prize money? You know, so there are ways, and I think that as we engage in the discussion, we have to articulate more. We have to change the mindset among the Calypsonians. We have to bring them together, but there is need for a mindset change to understanding that this thing that, I mean, maybe a great majority of them are taking slightly and selling themselves short, can be better for them if they organize themselves and understand how far it can be taken and how it can help in the development of Grenada.
Right. Yeah. Just before, hold on, Dexter. Just before you go, we must take a quick break, a short break, and then we're gonna come back. So let's just take a very short break, and we'll come back and adjust, because I also have a couple of questions I would like to throw out there as well. So we'll take a break, folks. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
The Grenville Cooperative Credit Union introduces its new digital platform, managing your finances at any time from anywhere.
As a part-time student, balancing work and studies can be a real challenge. But with GCCU's digital app, these worries are no more. My parents can now remotely transfer funds to my account, and I can check my balance at any time, giving me the freedom to achieve my goals.
My days can be long and tedious. With this app, I can ensure my loan is paid on time, transfer funds to someone else's account, and check my balances. I don't have to rush to do business during my lunch hour or after work anymore.
With this app, I can request checks to pay my suppliers, letters for my business transactions. I don't have to leave my farm to go stand in line.
The Grenville Credit Union digital platform. It's convenient and secure banking right at your fingertips. Download the app today from the Play Store or App Store, or call 442-8602, 459-4325, or 416-8467 for further information.
Attention all divers, snorkelers and underwater enthusiasts. Effective May 15th, 2025, all visitors to the renowned Mullinair Underwater Sculpture Park will be required to pay a small fee of US $3.50 or EC $10 per person. These fees are essential to support the ongoing maintenance and repairs of the sculptures, as well as the development of new features to ensure the park remains a world-class attraction. Payment can be made through the Grenada Tourism Authority's online payment portal, available on the Pure Grenada website, www.puregrenada.com. We thank you for your support in enhancing this extraordinary underwater product. This announcement is brought to you by the Grenada Tourism Authority and the Ministry of Tourism, dedicated to protecting and conserving Grenada's resources for the enjoyment of all.
The new Grenville Credit Union debit card has made online shopping easier than ever. Quick, secure, and hassle-free. Just tap, pay, and shop with confidence. Get yours today.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Kaiso Talk. In case you joined us late, and of course with us, Val, Dexter, and Teacher Eddie. Teacher Eddie, let me just ask you that first, and then we'll go back to the open discussion. Now, we spoke a bit earlier about musicians, and Dexter mentioned it that we don't have enough musicians to go around, and that is a fact. In addition to that, I can clearly recall that there was a time when musicians were not paid for practice sessions, but they were paid for, performing at a show. All right? We're hearing now that for every practice session, you have to pay the musician to rehearse. To me, that is unheard of. I don't understand that theory. Because to me, if you have to do a job, you have to prepare yourself to do the job. So, but that is an aside. So, when did that started, Eddie? Having to pay,
that started sometime when the reason it started is because the musicians were claiming that they spend hours practicing and then you have one show. So they only get paid for one show. So to compensate for that, they said, okay, pay us for practice. Right, but you still have to come back and pay for show. So you're paying for the practice and you're paying for the show. That is their rationale for paying for practice. Right? I always question it. Well, if you have to, the same that you said, if you want to do the work and you don't practice, you don't do it. But that's it. And their logic is that, well, we normally, we organize in a tent, we practice, and then you're going to do one show. So we only get paid for one show, and we spend all the time practicing. So that's where the whole concept of.
So if you quickly, if I have to pay to practice, right, for a show, and after the show you go and you make mistake, what happen?
I guess you could take them to task in that case.
Oh,
but they still charge you for the show. So now they get it for the practice and they still get it for the show.
Well,
I don't know if it's a reduced. I don't think it's a reduced cost. That's the cost for the show. The cost for the show is the cost for the show, and the cost of practice.
I don't know, but I just because you see, I'm just thinking the amount of complications that are involved that the Calypsonian has to undergo, and I think all of that, everything together, is a serious blow to the art form.
Yeah, but Godfrey, the only persons that don't get paid for practice are the Calypsonians, eh? Because you have to pay the background vocals, you have to pay the band. The Calypsonians don't get no pay for that. When the show now, the Calypsonians don't get paid for the show neither. So the band and the background vocalist, and you see where the subvention money go.
Mm-hmm.
So the Calypsonian, I mean, maybe Kaiso Bads, and I'm subject to correction, might be the only tent that gives a little stipend after the season.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every artist who sings with Kaiso Bad gets something after the season, but generally, you the artists don't get no pay, not for practice, not for show, not for nothing. And that's a sore spot. I was talking to somebody today, and I was saying, well, they need to start paying artists need to stand up for the pay too, because you can't get $20,000 or $30,000 or whatever the subvention is or will be, and then the band gets the show paid for everything else, and you will make the show. Because if there is no artist, there's no show. You that make the show, you ain't getting anything. And then it still come back to, it hurt me last year when I learned, and I just jumping gun, that the groovy artist at semifinal get $500. A little man come by me, and he say, teacher, buy a suit to go, and it costs more than $500. And I mean, I can see your Spice Man sitting down there. If nobody don't love me, come on, $500 for a show. So and Groovy Monarch semi-final $500. but nevertheless, when I started my first semi-finals, I got $175 was the appearance fee. And I had to pay. Them days, the police brassmen came down from Carriacou. So I was responsible for getting them because I was the only person from the tent. So I was responsible for taking them from the airport, getting them back to their home, have them at the show, the semi-finals, and make sure that they go back to get the boat to go back up Carriacou. So at the end of the day, I will end up with about $25 for myself. So still, I mean, but we have to look into that $500
listen,
would never be good.
Let me tell you, and I think Val made a point earlier, and Val, you could jump in here and help me out. I recall there was a year when the mighty Sparrow in Trinidad staged his own protest. I did not take part in the competition, but went to have his own show. I think it had to do with the queen, the Calypso queen, the Carnival queen, getting loads of prizes, and the Calypsonian was just getting a little thing. And Sparrow decided, nah, I'm not in that. And he went and he held his own show in one of those cinemas or wherever in Trinidad, and practically did even better than the Carnival people. That to me is testament to what Calypsonians can do if they can, rally their forces together and do what needs to be done.
Well, yeah, I mean, for Sparrow, it was, he pushed a lot of limits. One, you had the carnival was organized by the JC's Carnival Committee and the Guardian Media. So it was really plantation, organizing the Carnival Festival. So that the Calypsonian would have gotten a crown and maybe $50 or $100. I know when Pretender won it, probably about $50 back in the day, and Tiger and so on. So about the same thing, $50 to $100. And the JC's Carnival Queen was getting money, fridge, stove,
jewelry, car, or anything, trips,
a number of things, right? And blown up because of course she's of that pigmentation and so on. So that the Carnival Queen was the big thing, and of course Sparrow protested because look, I win the crown, but this, paltry $50 or $100 just don't cut it. So that he did create the Calypso after Brass Crown, because of that. So it wasn't worth it. How could the Carnival King, the man who is creating this song for the road and all of that, people jumping, tourists coming, right? And the JC's Carnival Queen, she just strolled across the stage and she gets all this money. Explainer, some years after, did sing the same thing, Not Me and the Monarchy, which is basically same kind of themes. So that what happened in Trinidad is that when the PNM won in 56, you had the appropriation of the JCs and the Guardian Media group and the formation of the NCC. But they are, even today, when you have, so CDC was formed, right, back in 56, but running on the same track, Not much has changed, right? The government took it over, appropriated the competition and so on, and understood what the competition meant, and how competition can do the same thing that is in Grenada, how it can regulate the development of culture, not necessarily develop it, but regulate it and keep it in competitive mode. So that has been happening, right? So that you have iterations of the CDC, and you now have NCC, the National Carnival Commission. But I'm saying that they are all running on the same track,
right?
And the competitions, and some people say, I mean, even Gypsy, that you can't get away from competition, and competitions are great and so on, but there is less collaboration taking place and definitely more competitions. And you have both in terms of the steel band and the Calypso, people are winning crowns and getting money. Yes, in Trinidad the money is bigger, but Desperados has 12 Panorama wins, but there is still very little development. in terms of where the ban emerged from, in terms of social and physical development, so that you really wonder what those wins are about. And I think that the time has come for the owners of the farm to start to question these things. That's simply what I'm putting out there.
Right.
You need to start to question in terms of what are you really getting out of it. And I've pointed out earlier on that there are ways of developing the product that you do not have to depend so heavily on the state purse in order to gain some kind of living benefits going forward.
Right, excellent. So guys, look, I think we basically understand, in our perspective, what created this problem with Kaiso. And so, Dex, I'm going to ask you, and based on what Val has said, when we sit and seriously look at the state of Kaiso and our tents and our Dimanche Gras and all of that, what, in your opinion, are 5 changes, serious changes that can be made in an effort to get on the right path?
Well, I would start with the previous point Val was making about the revenue stream. The revenue streams already exist, Val, so that the Calypsonians do not have to go out and seek it for themselves. So the pay-per-view, for example, is controlled by the Spice Mass Corporation. They would do the pay-per-view and they would collect the monies from the shows. And based on my information, that has been a handsome amount for the last couple of years. All the various taxes, more vehicles are rented, more hotel rooms are filled, so the hoteliers are paying more taxes, more food, more drinks are consumed. Those companies are paying more taxes, so the government is benefiting. And I think a few years ago, economic impact assessment was done. And there's a lot of discrepancy in the numbers, here, the value of Carnival to Grenada is between 20 million, some people say as high as 60 million. Whatever that amount is, a portion of that must go back into the aquam. Not in subvention, not on Teacher ID waiting to find out when his ban is going to start a reverse because he only got some money. But the associations must be empowered by giving them they having direct grants from government. I think we need to retire the words of subvention so that they collect their grant in September or in October after government has done all its assessment from Carnival. And then they are free to do what they have to do. Obviously, with that grant comes condition. So you say to them, hey, you have money in September, October. I expect my first show to be right after the launch of Carnival on the first Friday in May. And then you get a full season from them. So that would be one for me, Godfrey.
Right.
Grants to the association, empowering of the associations, recognizing them first and foremost, then empowering them and providing grants to the associations. Not unlike grants that we get from foreign entities. 2, the development of the art form. And Teacher, I didn't know that I started with the backing of one of the local banks. It was Core Bank at the time. I started a Junior Calypso workshop program. It was going through the length and breadth of Grenada, including Carriacou. And one minister, when he came into office, said to me, Dexter, you could continue this, man. We want you to do this instead because we will bring people into the ministry and they will teach Calypso and so on. That never materialized. And that has been one of my greatest professional regrets, discontinuing my Junior Calypso program. But that will come back on the table. So 2 has to be the development
of the art form.
Calypso through the schools and so on. 3 has to be airplay. We have to have a space. These young kids who fresh out of school going on the radio with the pants below the bottom can't be the ones dictating what we listen to. There has to be a concerted effort. NTRC, the ministry. I know the licensing that the radio stations get allows for 1 hour of government programming every 24 hours. So we can start there, where the government can say that, give that 1 hour to local arts, to local entertainment, and make it between 8 and 8, not midnight. So the space for music. 4th would be development of musicians. We have musicians, but most of them are in churches. Most of them are playing music in the churches, and in the evangelical churches and in the Seventh-day Adventist churches. So the development of a proper music program where kids can go to the police band, go to the band house and learn, and take it to the schools. I know the Ministry of Culture in recent times have supposedly opened 2 studios. I know they built 2 studios, one in SAS, one in McDonald College. Those studios are not being used. They are fully equipped, but they are not being used. And then fourth, just the recognition of the practitioners is very important. That we must have a designation for somebody like Teacher Eddie, who's been doing this for 40 years, cannot only be known as a musician or calypsonian to us in calypso circles, but there must be some tangible recognition. And I'm not talking about OBE and MBE. I'm talking about being able to go to the bank and say, hey, this is what I do for a living. This has been my earnings over the last 5 years. Can I get a loan against this? And I think if the guys who play pan on the boats, on the tourist ships and so on, it's like they don't exist in as far as the financial institutions are concerned. They do not exist, So I think those things are very, very important if we have to move forward. Those would be my 5.
Right, Eddie. Anything you would, and I definitely like that. Eddie, is there anything you would like to add to that, or do you agree with him? And if yes, then anything you would like to add to that list of
I happy that Dexter mentioned, especially the development of the art form, because this is something I've been clamoring for. I mean, the GUT, now Nexa, when it was GUT Credit Union, they used to have Pass the Torch. You had people like myself, Wizard, Scholar, and so on involved, Rootsman Kelly, in the art form, and getting the young children into the calypso, getting them to like calypso, bringing them out by twice a month, right? To some centers. We had centers and doing little workshops with them. At that time we had a whole set of junior calypsos, like Dexter would recall during the days of Akima and so on, when we had a pool in St. Mark's, you had St. Patrick, you had St. David's, and so GUT Nexa now Nexa had that program going, but that has since discontinued, so there's no void. And since that happened, I've been clamoring to the Ministry of Culture to take on something like that. But again, it's just a set of talk. Nobody do. I just say when I talk, they don't listen, so I stop talk. Yeah, I stop talk because you're telling them what to do. For example, I mean, I was told, he said, okay, they want to remove the junior calypso but there's a suggestion to remove the junior calypso from the CCF and bring it sideshow. I said, but that was tried already. We had 2 years of taking the calypso out, and I didn't do anything to it. So you bring it back now. So my say to them, well, we'll put the Kaiso first. Let's start Kaiso 10 o'clock. I'm sure I could get all the children there 10 o'clock to start the Kaiso. We finish it by 12:30 and do the rest of the thing. Mm-hmm. Because people just jump up with an idea and you run it, I don't know if we don't documenting here, because if we documenting, people should know that was tried before. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. That was tried before. So if you want to give it a rebut, then you have to do it differently. You can't come up with the same way. But I don't know, the Ministry of Culture, well, they say they want to take, they express interest in the junior Kaiso. But what have they done to ensure that we have junior calypso? And Kaiso don't fall from tree. I mean?
Right. Yeah. So Val, you listen to Dexter. I mean, I think Dexter made some very crucial points there, and I've written them down because I believe these are things that need to be put out there for people to ponder on and start working on it. Anything you think can be added to that list, Val?
No, just for me, I mean, the list is sound. The 5 things are just the expansion. He said that, you have pay-per-view and so on in place. And the Spice Mass is collecting. But in Spice Mass basket of goodies, when they collect, how is that distributed? Is the royalties accrue to the participants? How is their intellectual property rights? How is that honored in that arrangement of collection and so on? That is something I would probably like to know about. Yeah.
Right.
Can you expand on that?
I guess teacher ID would be best, but as far as I know, no discussions are ever had with the artist about the use of the images, the transmission of the images across the different platforms, and certainly no dividends as far as that collection is concerned. I guess it just goes back into the Spice Mass pool. The teacher ID would back.
I guess Spice Mass use that fundraiser.
Yeah.
But nothing goes back.
In terms of in terms of fixing, right? If you're talking about fixing and the 5 things, I think that's that definitely need to be looked at, because with the artist images and their music being and that being product that you are trading, then something has to accrue to the artist.
Of course.
No, I mean, and this is critical. And Dexter, before you came on, I was telling Eddie and Val, you listen to the Spice Mass theme this year for Carnival, the best mass by far. And I mean, it just goes to show the disrespect and the lack of courtesy on the part of these people. You didn't have the courtesy even to at least inform the artist, or so much so invite him to perform at the lunch, and you just go on with it.
No, I was going to congratulate you and say, Godfrey, things looking good for you.
No. Let me tell you something. Things like that. It wouldn't slip in Miami Jesu.
I know. No, and again, there's an example. We did it in 2006, if you remember. August is the time we went to the band. I went to the guy. I can't remember the lead singer of Magnificent Six.
That's
Seabot, yes.
He tried to tell me it was his song, but I found out it wasn't his song, it was the band song. And then I went to the band, Miss Mitchell and Lady Cynthia's sister, and we had an arrangement. I mean, in fact, she was excited that we actually was going to revive one of the songs and use it as a thing for Carnival. So the right thing to do was that Spice Mass has to reach out. I would have even proffered to let the young man make a jingle. If this is going to be the theme, let him make a jingle specific to 2025 and compensate him accordingly. But again, it goes to show what we spoke about, the lack of respect for the practitioners and who they believe owns. They believe that they own it and not the practitioners. And it's the same thing, because even if you're making the argument, and let me play the devil's advocate, that Spice Mass Corporation is saying, hey, we have to pay out all these bills, we have to pay out all these artists and so on. At least the artists should have some awareness that this is happening. That is amount of money.
That is exactly.
Give me a waiver form. Let me sign off. What if your image ends up in something that you should not, or you do not want it associated with? That then becomes accountable. So.
That's the thing, yeah. But so Dex, I just want to comment quickly on your list, because I think this is so important, and there are basically 3 of them, and the other one, development of the art form, development of musicians, recognition, of the practitioners. And I just want to add one thing, Dexter. And I think you mentioned it earlier inside our discussion, that of creating an enabling environment for the artist. So, for example, how many calypso shows do we have in Grenada for artists to come out and perform and things like that? None. Aside from Legends in Concert, or if Dexter does something, or then they have the masters. There is nothing else. Why can't the Spice Mass Corporation collaborate with promoters and help to create these kind of avenues, even if it's not on a large scale? But you do it so that way artists can test their skills. They can, you improve and you develop. And I believe maybe it is something that we can add to that list, Dexter. And we can.
Just before you go on to the thing, I think in the ad for Masters of Kaiso, I heard Spice Mass as one of the sponsors.
Yeah, I saw the logo. Yeah, I saw the logo.
Okay.
Yeah, but these are important things if you're serious about development of the art form. Because why is it that artists don't go, or people, not artists, sorry, why is it that people don't go to the tents as before? You know, they why? Does it have anything to do with the quality of music that our Calypsonians are putting out? What is the reason? I don't believe, well, as it relates to the March Gras, there's the argument about the soca monarch and so on and so forth. But I don't buy that, because, not so much, because if that's the case, then why people don't go to tents anyway? If there is still a love for Calypso and you know, all of that, why people don't go to tents to listen to Calypso? I mean, so there are a lot of questions that one can ask. And I believe there are a number of things that are involved. There are a number of factors. And I believe they need to be identified. And there must be a collective approach in addressing those things. So the Spice Mass Corporation, Ministry of Culture, Cultural Foundation, the Calypso associations, you know, they need to identify the issues and address it together, and that's the only how I think we can see any change. And you know, also Calypsonians understanding that they own this thing, as Val said, and they have that right. They have that right. So I believe things can change.
No, I was agreeing with you, Godfrey. I agree with you fully. But the issue continues to be, and I think I go back to what Val said, that we keep talking around the problems. The people at the helm, and if you look at the construct of the management of Spice Mass, since it came into being, are not necessarily Carnival people. And let me just say this, and Teacher Eddie, you know that in your time.
That is true.
The Carnival committee used to get a lot of blows. I mean, I was part of it, and it was a group of volunteers. But what it was people who were committed to Grenada, to culture, and to Carnival. So you sat in a Carnival committee meeting, and the chair, whoever the chair was, could point to Teacher Eddie, say, Teacher Eddie, this year you go take this Carnival. And Teacher Eddie say, no problem. Godfrey, you go deal with them Panman this year, you go take Panorama. But Godfrey's a Carnival man. So he's not specialized to Pan, so he could do or the chair could say, all right, Godfrey, go deal with Calypso. What you have now in this present construct, where you have representatives of the associations, you have people knocking heads. So the Pan representative is not there to represent Calypso. He doesn't care about Calypso. He has to go back to his constituents and say, hey, guys, I got a victory for you. You know, he's not he doesn't look at the product overall. He looks at what he can tell Pan and Pan people to be satisfied. So I still maintain, I don't like the construct of the Spice Mass Corporation. I think it should go under the Cultural Foundation so that you have the development and then the exhibition taking place. So all the developmental work takes place throughout the year under the ambit of the Cultural Foundation, and the showcase takes place during Carnival, again managed by the Grenada Cultural Foundation. Not because the Cultural Foundation is telling you they're not responsible for Carnival. Carnival is telling you they're not responsible for development. And we have been at this standstill for the last 3 or 4 years, and nothing is happening, and the practitioners continue to suffer. And if we do not safeguard it, I've said this before publicly, if we do not safeguard it, the people who are coming, who are filling the hotel rooms, who are Val's friend who came here last year, they are going to get fed up.
And they will stop coming.
They are going to go to St. Vincent.
I agree. Gentlemen, boy, what a discussion. But we out of time, so I'll give everybody at least 30 seconds just to make their closing comments. Eddie, we can start with you.
Yeah, well, for me, it was wonderful being on the program. I think the last 3 weeks was mind-blowing. I mean, I want to compliment GBN and Godfrey you for always taking that initiative, whether it was we culture or Kaiso Talk, them kind of informative program. I think we need more of you on radio and TV, so to push the Kaiso and to see the whole culture in terms around Carnival and so on, you know, blossom.
Yeah,
I would like to see that.
Yeah, Dexter.
Yeah, let me just continue the compliment to Godfrey and to GBN. And I think by ventilating the issues, we are getting a better understanding of where we came from and how we could heal the wounds. So I think that has not happened sufficiently. And I really, really hope that the powers that be understand what they are tasked with. Too often, when somebody is critical or somebody offers advice on how things could be different, they take it as criticism. And all of us have been in the public space and understand that you're not going to get everything right. And when somebody criticizes you, sometimes rightfully so, not rightfully not so, you take it and you move on. I find people are so sensitive. You cannot say, hey, you're doing this wrong, or hey, you need to do better. They get so sensitive and protective of their space. But if you are not doing it right and it can be done better, listen to those who've done it before. There's a voice and a place for Teacher Eddie. You cannot have discussion about the development of Calypso in Grenada without involving Teacher Eddie. And here, you cannot come to him with a suggestion. You have to get the suggestions from Teacher Eddie. So again, wonderful discussions, and I hope that it falls, the discussions fall on the right place. And Godfrey, this has to continue. Because I kind of get the sense that we're making some inroads now. The discussions with Papa Jerry, and I know people are listening. I've gotten some calls. Like I said, I'm volunteering my time when that time comes. And I hope that we continue to ventilate the issues to get to some solutions.
Yes, Tony, thank you. Val, your closing?
Well, I mean, we had 3 discussions here with Dexter and Eddie, myself, you. Great discussions. What I would like to see, of course, some of the issues that were raised really come to the fore and make a dent that the healing takes place. That we cannot go into 2026 without bringing the organizations together and having discussions in terms of changing the mindset, and that the guys on the ground understand what this thing is about. I think that for too long we have been going along just willy-nilly, just doing things without understanding that it is important, right? And we need to do more with it rather than just chip along and accept any old thing. So that if this discussion can lead someplace, I definitely hope that I would want to see something that by next year or even this year that some kind of progress is made, But I think that the discussion is definitely helpful.
Oh, definitely. I do believe that. I think these discussions are really, really great. And I know people are listening. I follow our Facebook page. I'm seeing the views. People are talking about it. And I definitely hope, we can continue. Again, I'm just saying to our Calypsonians out there, and it's Kaiso Talk, but of course, there's a lot more involved than just Kaiso. So, as we get closer and closer to Carnival, we'll be talking, we'll be spreading the discussion, expanding the discussion. So, there's an open invitation for Calypsonians, artists to be part of the conversation. As I said before, you don't have to wait to get a call for B to come on the program. Give me a call, and let's keep the conversation going. So, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so very much for your time, and I look forward, as time go by, for us to continue chatting and, keeping that information out there. So thank you very much. Thank you to our listeners, our viewers. It wasn't a pleasure. Next Wednesday, we're back. Another Kaiso Talk. Have a good night. All the best.
Yeah. Good evening.